How will the Seattle Seahawks fare on the offensive line in 2025? All right, everybody, good morning. Happy Sunday. Hope you guys are doing well today. And we've got some more predictions. And these predictions are perhaps the most interesting of any predictions that you can make with this team right now, because this is everything, right? The offensive line, or maybe to be a little bit more broad, the blocking on this team. How does this team block? How does this team execute up front? How does this team improve from the, quite frankly, biggest weakness of the team over the last 2 years? How do they fix the offensive line? Now, we know how they tried to fix the offensive line, but will it actually fix the offensive line? A little bit harder to figure out. Now, this one, it's always going to be a little bit difficult to quantify something like this with statistics, because the statistics can get you in the right area, but there needs to be a lot of nuance and understanding when it comes to actually putting all that data into some kind of a rubric that tells you whether or not the player is actually good or great or average or bad or really bad or whatever. So it's just a starting spot. It's just a starting place, but that's kind of the case for all of this. There's stuff that requires either something beyond numbers, or it requires very specific and granular numbers to really get to the heart of. So with all that being said, let's talk about the blockers. Let's talk about the offensive linemen. We're also going to do some tight end and running back stuff, because that's part of the process as well. Please click the thumbs up button on this video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're new. Click the bell for notifications. Become a channel member for $2 a month. Those are the best ways to support the channel. But let's get to it. For each player, what I'm going to do is go through penalties, how many penalties they pick up, false start, holding, hands to the face, how many sacks they allow, how many quarterback pressures they allow, and we'll be using Pro Football Focus numbers. Their scaling is obviously going to be different than some other sites, but we're going to go by PFF standards, which are pretty harsh for offensive linemen. And then we're going to also have a run block grade, and that's where things get dicey already, because it's a subjective grade. Just understand that we are talking about trying to get to the heart of how good the player will actually be at the practice. There is room for PFF to grade a player incorrectly, right? And there are many reasons why they might, or at the very least, grade them in a way that does not match up with what we as fans think we see, or the impact the player actually has on the team. So understand that the grading is just kind of a way to quickly capture how good I suspect they will be. With that being said, let's dive in with Charles Cross. I think this is going to be a pretty notable breakout year for him. I think that last year kind of was his breakout year, but Ryan Grubb got in the way. So this year with Kubiak, things should get better. I don't know if they'll get massively better. I still have him committing 7 penalties over a 17-game season, which would actually be, I think, a little bit better than last year. 5 sacks allowed, which for a left tackle is pretty good. It's not elite. It's not the Trent Williams. It's not the Walter Jones level, but it's very good. Pressures allowed 34. Remember, not only is Cross probably going to be a little bit of a better player this year, but we also have Kubiak's offense that should help him a lot. And then run block grade, I went with 79.8. I think he proved last year that he has turned into a pretty good run blocker, and I think that he'll make one final step up from where he was last year. And we know that he's added significant muscle this offseason. He talked about it. So I don't think he's going to be an elite run blocker at the tackle position, but I think he'll be very good, bordering on great. So that would be a really good season for Charles Cross. That's an average of 2 pressures allowed a game by Pro Football Focus standards. Remember, PFF works these offensive linemen very hard. So 34 is actually really good. Okay, Gray Zabel, the rookie, 6 penalties for me. Obviously, his job is going to be a little bit easier than Cross because he's playing on the interior. But we are talking about a guy who did commit a lot of penalties the last 2 years in college. His short arms, playing a different position. I think there are going to be some issues here. I think that there's going to be a decent number of penalties. I don't think it'll be crippling, but if it ends up getting higher than this, something like 9 or 10, I won't be completely shocked. 6 sacks, which isn't great, but it should at the very least indicate something that will get better over the next few years, which is obviously preferable to what you have with Laken Tomlinson, a guy who you know is on the way out. Pressures, 35. Again, not great, but workable and showing a promise. And 61.4 run block. If you look over the top-ranked interior offensive linemen or top-drafted interior offensive linemen over the last several years in the NFL, most of them do not hit the ground running. So I don't think Zabel's going to be able to buck that. Like, you look at somebody like an Osiris Torrance, he was okay. You look at the guy the Bucks drafted a couple years ago, Graham Barton, it was fine. But I don't think he's going to go out there and be radically better than what we had even last year. I think he'll be a little bit better, but the main benefit is that he should get better as time goes by. If not by the end of this season, then certainly by the start of next season. But for this year, I'm keeping the bar a little bit low because I think that serves all of us well as fans. Oluwatimi for the moment, starting center. I'm going with 6 penalties. I think that the experience he's built up should help, but 6 penalties. I don't see him ever being a completely clean player. He does have some physical limitations. So I went with 6, which, by the way, remember, it's a 17-game season. If he plays all 17 games, 6 penalties is not bad at all. Sacks allowed 2. Remember, centers typically don't allow a lot of sacks because they're typically not the ones being asked to block the most dangerous pass rushers on the opposing team. 15 pressures allowed. Again, that seems low, but for a center, that's actually pretty standard and would still not place him among the best centers in the league at preventing pressure because that's just the way centers work in today's NFL. And run block grade 64.2. I think he'll be about, I'd say, slightly above average in this area. And when I say slightly above average, I mean for all centers. For starting centers, I expect him to be near the bottom, but maybe that's okay. That's not the end of the world. Okay, so Oluwatimi, pretty good. And by the way, one thing I should point out, keep in mind that sacks are not always attributed to the player that was blocking. Sometimes you have a sack that nobody gets blamed for on the line because it was the quarterback's fault, or it was a free rusher that nobody was blocking because the offense just got tricked. Like, there are ways for a sack to not be attributed to the blocker. So if you're wondering, like, where'd the rest of my sacks go? Because I had Darnold getting sacked X number of times, and I only have Y number of sacks here. Keep in mind, some of those sacks are not going to be attributed to the blocker. Okay, Christian Haynes is next up. I, for the moment, think he's going to start at right guard. I am open to something else happening. I would be cool with something else happening. But for the moment, I think this is the safe bet. So I'm going to make that my bet. So let's pull the predictions apart here. I'm going with 5 penalties. As the right guard, he has kind of the easiest job on the offensive line. He's very experienced from college. He was able to at least practice for a full season last year. So I don't think there should be any reason why he's committing a lot of penalties out there. I think that he'll keep things relatively clean compared to somebody like a Bradford in previous years who did commit a lot of penalties. Sacks allowed, I went with 5, which would not be very good from a right guard, but I'm going to say that there's still going to be a little bit of a learning curve here. And I'm going to say that he ends up getting dinged a decent amount. 38 pressures. I'm really just trying to keep the expectations a little bit low here because I think I got ahead of myself with Haynes last year. I don't want to do that again. And even though he's playing right guard, which should be a position where you don't give up a lot, in the passing game because you're going up against one techs and nose guards. I just don't want to get too far ahead of myself here with Haynes's play. And the run block grade, 68.8. I think he'll be good there. I think the pass protection is going to be a little bit tough. I don't know. I still like Haynes, but I cannot help but find my enthusiasm a little bit curbed by the things we're hearing recently. Okay, so that's Christian Haynes. Abe Lucas is our final starter on the offensive line. 6 penalties. Again, you might be looking at these penalty counts and you might be thinking, wow, that's really bad. But remember, it is a new offensive coordinator. It is a new offense. It is a new quarterback. And we do have at least one, in this scenario, 2 new starters. There's probably going to be some bumps. So it won't surprise me that much. Sacks, I went with 7 sacks allowed, which again, doesn't sound great. But I think that if you compare that to other good right tackles in this league, that's pretty typical. Again, 17-game season, man. That's not even 1 sack every 2 games. So, sounds bad, but it's not necessarily bad. Pressures allowed, I went with 26. I think he's going to keep that number nice and low. Being the strong side blocker also means that I think he'll be able to prevent some more pressures as well. I think that there's going to be a pretty good rate of pressure to sack here for Lucas. That's just my guess here. And run block rate, I went with 71.2. He'll be good. I don't think he'll ever be a great run blocker, but he'll be good. He'll be able to get it done. And that's the offensive line. Those are the starting 5. Again, it doesn't look great. You're not necessarily looking at this and thinking to yourself, this is going to be the best offensive line in football or even a top 10 one. But I don't think that's a reasonable expectation. We're basically bringing forward last year's offensive line with new guards, one of which is a rookie, by the way. So I just don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. All right, so we're also going to do the starting tight end, and I don't know who's actually going to start at tight end for the Seahawks. Arroyo might start, and Barner might end up playing more, but I put Arroyo over here. I don't think it's going to matter that much. I think they're both going to play a relatively equal number of snaps, assuming good health. So Arroyo, I said 2 penalties. And honestly, that might be low given the fact that he is a rookie, but I don't think he's going to play full time, so that's going to help. 0 sacks allowed. I don't think he's going to be asked to do a lot of blocking. 4 pressures allowed. I don't think he's a very good blocker. He's like passable, I guess, but I don't think we're going to ask him to do it that much. Run blocking, 51.1. Again, I don't think it's a big deal. He's not going to do it a ton, but I don't get the sense that this rookie year is going to be very kind to him as a blocker. And finally, we got the starting running back, Ken Walker. I'm going with 1 penalty, just some point randomly throughout the season. He picks one up. Maybe it's a false start. Maybe it's some kind of, it's like grabbing the face mask when you do the stiff arm. Who knows? He'll get 1 at some point. 0 sacks allowed. I don't think he's going to be asked to do a lot of pass protection. 4 pressures allowed. Again, I don't think we're going to be putting that on him. I think it's going to be more of a Charbonnet thing. When we do ask Walker to pass protect, I think it'll be a lot of things where he's like immediately leaking out for a screen or something like that. And we're not asking him to really block so much as we are just to chip. And the run block rate is 60. I think he's going to run block maybe 3 or 4 times all season. I don't think we're going to be giving the ball to Robbie Oots and asking Ken Walker to lead block for him a lot. So the totals for this group would be 33 penalties, 25 sacks, 156 pressures. Again, it doesn't sound great, and it's not, but if it's an improvement over last year, then so be it. Now, this video is already pretty long, but I do have the backups here as well, the presumed backups. We can go through them real quick. Quite honestly, a lot of them I don't think are going to play that much, but some of them will. Josh Jones, I'm going to guess that he plays very little. Just an assumption I'm making. I don't really know why he's here at this point. Like, I know that he's played tackle before, but I don't really look at him as a tackle when you look at how big he is. But I'm going to say he plays a couple of snaps throughout the season. Run block rate 55.2, but it's not going to mean anything, right? He's not going to play enough to do anything negative, and it's whatever. Lomia, I currently have listed as a left guard. He's not a left guard, but that's just where I put him for the time being. We'll see how things shake out. But I also don't think he's going to really play this season at all. I think Zabel's going to make it through, And I think Haynes and Bradford will take care of things on the right side. So Lomia gets the season off. Jalen Sundell, the backup center for the time being. I think he plays a little bit. I think he gets some time. And I'm not too high on Sundell, but I don't think he's going to play enough to do anything truly impactful. I said 2 pressures allowed, 49.8 run block grade, which is bad, but it's not going to be... He might play some garbage time. He might get in the second half of one game. Just at some point, something's going to happen, and he's going to get out there. Anthony Bradford, I don't think is going to play. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Christian Haynes plays good enough to hold that starting job. I wish I felt a little bit better about it, but I think continuity is going to be valued here. I don't think we're going to be in a hurry to throw Christian Haynes off the bus because of 1 or 2 bad games. And for the moment, I'll say that Bradford ends up not playing this year, but that's just the nature of this, where I have to predict things that are really hard to predict. Mike Jarrell, I do think will play some. Just my gut. I think Lucas plays most of the season, but he doesn't play the whole season. 2 penalties, 1 sack allowed, 5 pressures allowed. Probably still too raw to be an effective pass protector. He was really bad at it last year, like unplayably bad. 59.8 run blocking grade. That won't be too bad, I guess. He'll show some improvement there, but I still think he's not quite where he needs to be an impactful, positive force on an offensive line. Okay, A.J. Barner. Now, we know A.J. Barner is going to play a decent amount, so I'm going to say he picks up a couple penalties, no sacks allowed, 3 pressures allowed. I'm going to make a sizable bet on him becoming a really good blocking tight end. He was pretty good last year. I think he'll make a step forward in 2025. So 3 pressures allowed on a pretty decent number of pass blocking reps and a 67.7 run blocking grade, which is above average, but by the standard of blocking tight ends in the league right now would actually be really good, because there aren't a lot of good blocking tight ends. Zach Charbonnet, I'm going to say 1 penalty, no sacks allowed, 4 pressures. He'll do it more than Walker, but he'll be better at it. And a 65.4 run block grade. Again, he's not going to run block very much, so it doesn't mean a lot. And you do the math here. 5 total penalties, 1 sack allowed, and 14 pressures. So it's not too bad, guys. It's not too bad. That's 26 total sacks allowed by a blocker. I do think there are going to be a decent amount of sacks not on a blocker. It'll be on the quarterback. It'll be on the coverage. It'll be on just a complete free blitzer. You guys, I think you guys know what I'm getting at here, but this is how I see things breaking out. Let me know what you guys think. I will see you guys either later today or tomorrow. Everyone have a good day. More predictions coming soon, more videos coming soon, but that's how I see things breaking out for the Seattle Seahawks, blocking for the offense.